Okay, picture this scenario. You launch a startup. It's, day one. The office is your garage, maybe a sticky table at a coffee shop.
Right.
The strategy, it just lives in your head.
Yeah.
You don't need a memo to tell your co-founder what to do. You nudge them and point at a screen.
Right.
It's fast. It's visceral. It works.
It's that pirate ship phase. Everyone knows the mission because you're all in the same boat getting splashed by the same waves.
That's right. But then you succeed. You grow. And suddenly that pirate ship is an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
You have departments, layers, time zones.
Yeah.
You can't just nudge someone anymore because they might work in a different hemisphere. And you realize that despite everyone working incredibly hard, all the good intentions are there, the decisions being made on the front lines, they don't look anything like the strategy you have in your head.
That is the classic crisis of complexity. It's the moment an organization has to transition from, implicit tribal knowledge to explicit systems.
Yeah.
And frankly, most companies really botch this transition. They either become paralyzed by bureaucracy or they just stay chaotic and burn out.
That is exactly the problem we're trying to solve today. We're doing a deep dive into a dense, but I think incredibly valuable set of materials titled From Strategy to Value-Added Planning.
Okay.
And the mission here is crucial. How do you translate a high-level, multi-year strategy into consistent daily action without turning into a micromanager?
That's the holy grail, isn't it? Alignment without suffocation.
It is. And the source material argues that the answer isn't just working harder or, God forbid, holding more meetings. It introduces two very distinct disciplines that most people mix up.
Strategic planning and value-added planning.
Exactly.
They're distinct, but they have to interlock. Think of strategic planning as defining the destination. That's really the CEO's burden. Value-added planning is, well, it's mapping the route. That's where every other manager comes in.
And the core tension here, which the text explores, is that difference between accountability and activity.
Yeah.
Accountability is not the same as being busy. I mean, that line from the reading really stuck with. I feel like we could print that on a T-shirt.
It's profound. In most organizations, the default reaction to chaos is just activity. I'll answer more emails, I'll attend more meetings, I'll create more spreadsheets.
Just do more stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But this framework argues that unless that activity is specifically linked to a strategic outcome, it's just noise.
Yeah.
It's caloric expenditure without any forward progress.
So let's cut through the noise. We have to start at the top. The source calls this the strategic foundation, or the CEO's burden. Why a burden? That sounds pretty heavy.
Because strategy is fundamentally about risk and exclusion. The definition here is very, very crisp. Strategy is deliberate choices over time. It's not a wish list.
Right.
It's not saying we want to be the best at customer service and have the lowest price and the fastest delivery. That's not a strategy. That's a fantasy.
Right, because real strategy means trade-offs. You have to pick a lane.
Exactly. It defines where the organization is going, but, and this is maybe more important, it defines what the organization will not do. And that is incredibly hard for leaders.
Oh, yeah.
The source asks this really provocative question that every leader should tape to their mirror. What will we say no to, even if it looks attractive?
That's where the discipline comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say no to a bad idea. It's agonizing to say no to a good idea just because it doesn't fit the strategic positioning.
Precisely. And this gets us to the concept of strategic positioning versus just operational effectiveness. You can't just try to be better than your competitors at everything. You have to choose a specific area where you add distinctive value.
The reading also really emphasized that this strategy has to be explicit. It can't just stay in the founder's head anymore.
If it's not written down, it's not real. I mean, as complexity grows, an implicit strategy basically becomes a secret. And you cannot delegate effectively if the context is a secret. A documented plan isn't just paperwork. It is the primary tool for delegation.
Now, there was a concept in this section that I found really technical at first, but fascinating. The time horizon. It sounds like something from a physics lecture, but it's actually a way to measure the weight of a role. Can you break that down for us?
It's a great mental model. The time horizon is essentially the length of time between making a decision and knowing if it actually worked.
Okay.
So if you're a frontline worker, your time horizon might be hours or days. You make a widget, you check the quality, boom, you know if you succeeded.
An instant feedback loop. I did the thing is done.
Right. But for the head of an organization, the strategic plan operates over a multi-year horizon, usually 3 to 5 years. They're making bets today, investing in R&D, entering a new market where the feedback loop won't close for
Which is
years.
terrifying. You're flying blind for a long, long time.
Yeah, it is high stakes. But that is why the CEO is paid the big bucks. They are accountable for that long-term survival. The danger, and the source is very clear on this, is when a CEO stops working in that 3-year horizon and drops down to fix a problem that's going to be resolved by next Tuesday.
They shrink their horizon.
Yeah, they do. And when the CEO drops down a level, they aren't just micromanaging, they're leaving a vacuum at the top. Who is looking at 3 years from now if the CEO is looking at next week?
No one.
No one. And that's how companies hit icebergs.
That's a chilling thought. So the CEO needs to stay in their lane, dealing with mission, vision, and those, 3 to 4 critical strategic goals. Let's assume they've done that. They have a clear document. Now for the hard part, execution. How do we get this down the ladder without it turning into that game of telephone where the message gets garbled?
This is where we cross the bridge into value-added planning. And to understand this, we have to go back to that distinction between delegated work and value-added work.
I really want to drill into this because I think a lot of us feel value added when we're just clearing our inbox or, helping a team member fix a printer. How does the source define it?
It's a very strict definition. Value-added work is work that only a person in your specific role with your specific authority and capability can do. If someone who reports to you can do it, it is, by definition, delegated work.
Ouch. Okay, I think I'm guilty of hoarding delegated work.
We all are. It feels good to fix things. It feels productive to check a box. But the source argues that if you're doing work your direct report could do, you are technically overpaid for that hour. The company is paying a director's salary for an associate's work.
Right.
But worse than the money, you're blocking your own ability to do the strategic work only you can do. You're robbing the company of your actual leverage.
So value-added planning is about identifying that unique contribution. But how does that structure flow down? The text warns against that sort of waterfall method, just taking a big goal and chopping it into tiny little tasks.
Right. Task decomposition leads to fragmentation. You see this all the time. The boss breaks a project into 50 tasks and just hands them out. So you get people doing stuff without knowing why.
Why am I writing this report? I don't know. The boss wants it.
Exactly. It kills motivation and it kills agility. Instead, this framework proposes cascading context and intent. This leads us to what they call the milestone rule.
The milestone rule. Okay, this was the most technical part of the reading for me, but it seems like it's the engine of the whole system. Walk us through it.
Okay, imagine a ladder of goals. The CEO has a strategic outcome due in 3 years. To get there, they've defined major milestones along the way. The milestone rule says that the CEO's next to last milestone becomes the planning context for the level directly below them.
Can you give us a concrete example? Because abstract ladders are a little hard to climb.
Sure. Let's say a CEO has a strategic goal to dominate the Asian market in 3 years. A critical milestone for that might be establish a fully operational headquarters in Singapore by month 18.
Okay, so the CEO doesn't tell the director of operations how to build the office. They're not saying, call this realtor or buy these desks.
Exactly. The CEO hands down that milestone, headquarters operational by month 18. The director of operations looks at that and asks a critical logic question. What must be true before that can happen?
What must be true? I love that phrasing. It's not what do I do, it's what conditions must I create.
Right. So the director might say, well, for the HQ to be operational, we need legal entities formed, we need real estate secured, and we need local hiring compliance sorted. Those become their objectives. They're building the bridge to the CEO's destination.
And then it just cascades again from there.
Yes. The director hands the real estate secured milestone to a manager. That manager then asks, what must be true to secure real estate? Well, we need a broker, we need a budget, we need site visits.
I see. So the context flows down, the why and the what, but the how is generated by the person who's actually doing the work.
Precisely. This creates alignment without micromanagement. The CEO isn't checking if the manager booked a flight for a site visit. The CEO is checking if the Singapore HQ milestone is on track. Everyone operates within their appropriate time horizon.
This leads to the actual physical output here, the manager's value-added plan. This isn't just a thought experiment. The source describes the specific document and a very specific process for creating it.
It does, and this is where most companies fail. They treat planning like a form-filling exercise. Fill this out for HR, put it in the binder.
Yeah.
But this source describes a dynamic loop. Draft, dialogue, revise, confirm.
That dialogue part seems to be the linchpin. Why is it so important that this is a conversation and not just an assignment?
Because in any complex organization, the boss creates the strategy, but they do not know the reality on the front line. They can't. They're too far away. The subordinate has information the boss lacks about resource constraints, technical hurdles, market reality.
So if the boss just hands down a plan, it's probably a fantasy.
Exactly. It's a hallucination. When the manager drafts their plan first and brings it to the boss, they are saying, given the resources I have and the reality on the ground, this is how I propose to hit your milestone.
And the boss might say, well, that's not fast enough.
And the manager can say, okay, then I need more budget, or we need to cut this other project. That negotiation, that friction is healthy. The source calls it constructive dialogue. It builds reality. It ensures that when they finally say go, both sides actually believe the plan is doable.
There was a great quote in the notes. Iteration is not inefficiency. It is how clarity, trust, and judgment are built. I feel like we're so obsessed with speed that we skip the iteration. We just want to start working.
And that's how you end up working on the wrong things for 6 months. Spending 3 hours iterating on a plan to save 3 months of wasted effort is the best ROI you can possibly get.
Now, does this plan look the same for everyone? I mean, does a director's plan look the same as a frontline manager's plan?
The structure is the same. Goals, milestones, resources. But the nature of the work changes. And this goes right back to that time horizon concept.
Right. So what's the unique value add of, say, a level 3 leader, a director?
A director is usually managing other managers. Their value add is integration. They are looking across different silos. They're asking, if sales pushes hard on this new product, is it going to break logistics? They are making trade-offs and building capability for the future. Their horizon is usually a year, maybe 18 months.
And the frontline manager?
Their focus is throughput and stability. They're looking at weeks or months. Are we meeting the daily quota? Is the team trained? Is the quality high? If a director comes down and starts trying to manage daily throughput, they're skipping a level.
And we've all seen that. The hero director who swoops in to pack boxes or write code because the deadline is tight.
It looks heroic, but it's actually destructive. Because while that director is packing boxes, no one is doing the integration work. No one is checking if sales is about to break logistics. The system becomes fragile because the leader abandoned their post to do the work of the level below them.
That brings us to the pitfalls. We've mentioned skipping levels. The source lists a few other ways this whole process goes off the rails. Over-specifying and under-specifying. This sounds like the Goldilocks problem.
It is. Over-specifying is just micromanagement. It's telling a subordinate exactly how to do the task. Write the email this way, format the spreadsheet that way. When you do that, you remove their judgment. You turn them into a robot.
Right.
And robots don't take ownership. When things go wrong, the robot says, hey, I just did what you told me.
And under-specifying.
That's the sink or swim approach. Just make it happen. It sounds empowering, but it's actually an abdication of leadership. If you don't define the boundaries and the outcomes clearly, the what must be true part, the manager will just guess, and they'll often guess wrong. You end up with these huge gaps where accountability falls right through the floor.
There's one more trap the source mentions that I think is probably the most common, the one-time event.
Yes, treating the plan like a New Year's resolution. You write it in January, you feel great about it, you file away, and you don't look at it again until December when you realize you missed everything.
So how do you keep it alive? The source suggests changing the way we do one-on-ones.
This is a great tactical gem. Most one-on-ones are just status updates. What did you do this week? I did X, Y, and Z. It's boring, and it's usually focused on busyness. The source suggests shifting the question to, how is your value-added work supporting the agreed-upon outcomes?
It forces the manager to link their week right back to the strategy.
It does. It keeps the context front and center.
Right.
It allows for course correction in real time. If the manager says, well, I spent all week fixing the printer, the boss can say, okay, but how does that help us launch the Singapore office?
It exposes the drift immediately.
Exactly. It turns the meeting from a retroactive checklist into a proactive strategy session.
I want to touch on one final really critical distinction before we wrap up. The source differentiates between delegating a deliverable and delegating accountability for the outcome. This seems like a legalistic point, but they insist it's vital.
It's vital because it stops the blame game. The head of the organization can delegate the responsibility to do the work, to build the office, to hire the team, but they retain the accountability for the strategic outcome.
So if the strategy fails, the CEO can't just turn around and blame Bob in real estate.
Correct. The CEO is accountable for the design of the whole system. If the parts didn't add up to a win, that's on the architect, not the bricklayer. It forces the leader to ensure that the sum of all the delegated parts actually equals the goal. You cannot delegate the ultimate responsibility for success. That stays at the top.
That is a heavy burden, but I guess that's why it's called the CEO's burden. It creates a kind of safety for the team, though, knowing the leader's holding the ceiling up.
Indeed. It allows the team to focus on their specific value add without worrying about the weight of the entire world.
So let's summarize the journey here. We start with a leader who has to make hard choices, define a clear, multi-year path, the what and the why. We then move to managers who use logic, not just obedience, to figure out what must be true to reach those goals.
Right.
And we use a structured dialogue to build plans that are grounded in reality, not fantasy.
That's it. It's a shift from a culture of busy to a culture of aligned.
And for everyone listening, I want to leave you with a challenge based on this time horizon concept.
Yeah.
It's a provocative thought to chew on.
It's a powerful lens to view your own work through.
Ask yourself this week, are you doing work that fits the time horizon of your role? Or are you getting sucked into the immediate urgency of the level below you?
Because if you're a director doing frontline work, you aren't being a hands-on leader. You're leaving a dangerous vacuum at your own level.
Find the work that only you can do. That's your value add. Everything else is just noise.
Couldn't have said it better.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one.